Hi friends, it's so great to see you. I am out here at the garden and we are just getting it all ready for gardening season this year. We start planting, or we should have everything planted around May 30th. That's when we don't have much danger of frost anymore, and it's kind of our safe time to plant. So that's always the goal every year. I wanted to show you a little bit about what we have going on. We don't have enough wood chips to do back to the Eden garden back here on this garden. So what we've done is we do deep mulch. And I've been actually very happy with deep mulch. We started that with our other garden over here on this side, and it seemed like it worked quite well. The wood chips, you don't have to replenish them quite as often, but it's also harder to get a hold of them. So in this video, I want to tell you a couple things. First of all, I want to show you why we do what we do, why we even cover it at all. And then we'll talk about some tips on how to find those things that you want to cover your garden with. So first of all, the reasons we cover it. Nature intended for the ground to be covered. As soon as you scrape the weeds off or anything like that, then you end up with some kind of growth comes back. There's always something there to replace whatever you've taken. So the earth that's how it operates. It was made to have that covering, and what that covering does is it keeps all of those beneficial bacterias and those beneficial things that live in our soil. It protects all of those. When we scrape it, then we lay all of that open to the sun, and you end up losing a lot of that. So by covering it, then you have all these microorganisms that are down there and working away at regenerating your soil and improving it. And so that's one of the reasons I keep it covered. The other reason I keep it covered is that it just holds a lot more moisture. Here in southeastern Idaho, we only get about 14 inches of rain a year. It's considered a desert, high desert. So we need the moisture, and I need it in the soil. Otherwise, it's really hard to grow vegetables. Our vegetables, we demand a lot out of them. We need them to grow really fast, and we want them to have these really big high yields. And so I need them to have a lot of moisture to their roots. Plus it also keeps the roots cool. Most plants really like to have that cool environment. They really thrive. There's no shock or any strain or stress on the plants. We've got several inches here and lots of nice moist soil down underneath there, and it's all ready for planting. So this part of the garden is good to go. We didn't have enough straw at the beginning of the winter to lay down, so let me show you the rest. That part out there we had to dig up with a tractor to get all the weeds, but I want to show you guys the difference and why we keep things covered, and what it does for our soil. This is the reason that you got to have a good deep mulch. Right here we don't have very much, and you can see the weeds are poking up because it's they're still able to get the light and come through there. But I want to show you the benefits of having your garden covered. So Ethan is going to go ahead and dig it up here, and we'll show you what the soil looks like, even with a very small amount of covering. So we have this nice, moist, rich soil where everything looks really good, and it's going to just be perfect for planting in. It's real easy to work with and easy to break up. So we're going to keep this all covered, and we are ready to go. Now over here, where we don't have really any covering at all, it's a big, big difference in the soil and the ground. So go ahead, Ethan, and dig that up a little bit. So first off, you can see he has to work a lot harder, so it's harder on us. Okay. There, you can see what's going on here. So the moisture is in the soil, but it's not in the top soil. and there really isn't much topsoil. This is all quite hard. It's much more clay packed, and we don't have the nutrients in it like we do on the other side. And then it's very hard to get the weeds out and work with it. So this is just, it's a lot more work, a lot more back breaking, and it's going to be harder to plant in, harder to prepare, and it doesn't have all the nutrients that the other one does, because the other one, it's been breaking down over the winter, and so there's nutrients that have put back into the ground, which is not the case over here. So thankfully we don't have very much of this. Most of it was covered, so we're going to be in pretty good shape. And this stuff that is harder, we're just going to turn it over really well. We're going to break it all up, get these weeds all out, and then we'll cover it up, and the process will be able to begin. It'll hold the moisture and it'll start breaking down. It's just not as far along in the process. And there's the final part where our neighbor came and he dug it up with his tractor for us. We're just so grateful, because that would have been a lot to tear up by hand. So that's all going to get covered with fresh straw. So those are the reasons that I like to keep it covered. Oh, plus then I'm not constantly picking weeds because I have a covering over it. So the weeds aren't trying to choke out my vegetables, and I have the moisture in there, and I have all those microorganisms making the soil rich and wonderful. And that is why I love deep mulch gardens and back to Eden gardens. Now, if you are having trouble sourcing wood chips, which is really common, I hear a lot of people are like, well, I would do back to Eden, but I haven't been able to source any wood chips, then straw works really good. But there's a few things you need to do to make sure that you don't kill your garden, because I know of people that have put straw or hay down on their garden and they end up with a dead garden, and it takes them years to regenerate the soil. And what happens when that happens is that the straw has been sprayed with something that has caused it to, it's real easy to harvest if everything dries at the same rate. So there's some people that will go in and spray it with Roundup or some other kind of a chemical so that the grass all dries at the same time, and then they can go back through and they can harvest that really easily. Thankfully, I have a source here in Idaho, right here in my locality, where I've talked to him about what he does, his processes and stuff, and there's nothing that's sprayed on this, so it's not anything I have to worry about. But before you go and just grab any waste hay or anything, make sure that you're not putting a GMO alfalfa on your garden, and make sure that whatever it is hasn't been sprayed. So that you know, it's really good to buy from the source. That way you can talk to them. So look on Craigslist, ask people in the area. I've found a lot of stuff on Facebook, and that way you can interact with the person that you're getting it from so that you know what you're getting. That is really, really important. The other thing to consider when you're putting straw down is that it will often have seeds in it. So, you know, straw comes from different grain grasses. Ours always comes full of seeds, and if you don't have like the chickens to get in there or something like that, what ends up happening is you end up with this cover crop, and it can choke out, and it can be just as obnoxious as weeds. So that's something you need to consider. You need to have some kind of a way to get those seeds out, or you need to, if you have a long enough growing season, you could go ahead and let that cover crop start to grow, but you need to be able to get back in there and pick it all out before you actually plant your plants, because it can choke it out if you end up with a lot of seeds in your straw. So for us, my chickens absolutely love it. So a lot of times we will stick it right back here in the chicken yard, and then we'll drag it all out here onto the garden. You get a little bit of fertilizer in there. We don't leave it on for very long. It doesn't take them long to get the seeds out, so you don't end up with a really high nitrogen, you know, burn that would burn your plants. But those are things to think about. Don't put fresh chicken poop on. So if it's been in your chicken coop or chicken yard for a long time, it's going to be too concentrated. You're going to need to let that sit for a while. Make sure that you are aware of what seeds you're putting on. Make sure that whatever source you're getting it from is somebody that hasn't been spraying, hasn't been using a bunch of chemicals, and that you know where it's been and what it's been doing. So anyway, those are my tips for a back to Eden or deep mulch style garden. And I know it kind of looks like a disaster back here right now, but before long it will be a beautiful garden, and I can't wait to show you. Thank you so much for stopping by. It was so great to see you again, and it's so good to be back here on YouTube after our break through the winter. We have all kinds of fun, exciting things coming up. This is always the time of year that is amazing as we prepare our gardens and get ready to start preserving and harvesting, and there's so much to do. We love being outside. I have short sleeves on, which is kind of miraculous because a few weeks ago it was snowing, and it feels so good to be able to be out and about and moving around. The kids are playing, and it's a happy time here in Idaho. So thank you for stopping by and for sharing that with me, and I will see you again soon. Bye!